Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Turkish Cultural Center. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you all with us this Friday evening. And I'm so privileged to have such wonderful journalists and writers from Turkey. And I would like to just introduce you, Mr. Salih Memecan and ERGUN BABAHAN, Mr. ERGUN, and as you know, Aydoğan Vatandaş from Cartoonist agency. One of the reasons why we wanted to have a discussion on Turkish media landscape is because the topic is very important. It's very timely. That many people in the US are questioning the press freedom in Turkey and the current development that's happening in Turkey. So we thought at the Turkish Cultural Center, why don't you bring the journalists and writers from Turkey to answer all these questions and also give the opportunity to our fellow Americans to ask their questions so that these questions and these answers could open many different avenues of understanding Turkey and the Turkey-US relations. Now I would like to start introducing our moderator, Mr. Aydoğan Vatandaş. Aydoğan Vatandaş is an investigative journalist and the author of 11 books, many of which have become bestsellers in Turkey. He is the media representative of the Turkish Cihan News Agency in New York since 2006. And he is correspondent and contributor to today's Zaman. He also contributes to the Record of New Jersey. He holds a master's degree in media studies at the New School in New York City. Now, the floor is yours. Thank
you so much. First, thank you very much for coming and participate to this event about the Turkish media. So today we will discuss the new media landscape in Turkey because we had a different media landscape before 2002. So we want to understand what changed and what remained unchanged in the Turkish media landscape. So we have three accomplished journalists and media figures from the Turkish media, and so we will try to understand the challenges that the Turkish media have been facing for a long time. So I would like to start with Mr. Salih Memecan. And Mr. Memecan, you are the president of the Media Association, which is actually a new organization. And could you please tell us what it represents and how it differs from the other media organizations?
Okay. Yes, I'm the president of the Media Association. I am actually a cartoonist. I've been working as a cartoonist, political cartoonist for Sabah newspaper for the last 22 years. And I was elected as the president. I guess I was the oldest among the board members. And also, they couldn't draw, I could draw, so we had a test. So who would draw the best bird picture? So I do. Anyway, the media was diversified quite a bit within the last 10 years. Before that, it was just from one block and represented one block, and that block is usually associated with the state, with the elites, with the rich people, with the businessmen, with the generals, with the military, and so on. So media was part of the establishment. But within 10 years, this has changed. We have now media landscape was quite diversified. We had conservative media, we had Kurdish media, we have leftist media, we have all kinds of newspapers and televisions representing all kinds of people in Turkey, which was, of course, has something to do with technology, also with the EU process, more freedom and more expression of freedom. But representation of media was somehow still the old style. I mean, they were representing, the old guys, the elites, or whatever you call. And now we decided that we should have a better representation of media, so we founded this establishment, this association. And our purpose was to train, first, to train journalists, second, to understand the change in new media technologies and explain it to our members, and third, to care about the freedom of press. About the first thing, I mean, the training and education of journalists, we have, first, we had a joint program with ICFJ, which is International Center for Journalists. It's a Washington-based NGO. So together we had this seminar first on internet, then as a seminar in Istanbul. We had we came out with a media ethics booklet. I mean, we studied on it. So we had all the principles and so on. So there were two professors from the United States, professors of journalism. So we worked on that. And then we have media schools, the so-called media schools we go, and together jointly with some universities in Istanbul, we asked prominent journalists to come and tell them about their profession to young journalists. So they tell them about how to edit newspapers, how to broadcast, how to report about economics or whatever. So we have been doing this with some universities. That's part of, and we have panels and seminars. But the second thing, to understand the media business, that's a tough job, I mean, to understand it. It's changing so fast. The old business models are not working anymore, and we don't know what to do with the new ones. You know, now internet, the news are free. Besides, the definition of news has changed. I mean, the news before this technology, news was what's happening in Ankara, what's happening in Washington, what's happening in neighboring countries, or what's happening in economy. But now the news is more like what's happening to my cousin, what's happening to my friends, and so on. So this you get from Facebook, and other news you are supposed to get from the newspapers, but you get from internet, and it's free. So what we should do and how we should be ready for the new business models, we study that. We ask foreign journalists or experts to come and explain it to us. And Dennis is an expert on it in a way. He writes a column every week about this topic. Again, we are working on it. And the third issue is about the freedom of expression thing. Now people complain that it's getting worse. It's not getting worse. It should have been much better by now, but it's not getting worse. I mean, I've been practicing this cartooning thing so I've been working in newspaper offices for the last 25 years, and I've been drawing political cartoons for the last 40 years. So practice was quite difficult in 1990s, for instance. At that time, there was a danger of being killed. So many journalists were killed, and we never knew who killed and why they were killed. We were told that most of the time they were killed because of, Islamists came and killed them, or they were just killed. And some of us had our cars armored. Some of us had bought guns, including myself. I recently sold it, gave it to a friend. So, as a cartoonist, I never questioned why am I buying a gun. Right now, as I think of it, those were some years actually, and we journalists had some things to do with that. I mean, we had part of the blame because some of us were cooperating with the bad guys, I would say, who were planning military coups. Actually, journalists, the established newspapers or media in Turkey had this habit of cooperating with the strong guys, who are usually the generals and whoever behind the coups, and they were part of it. But now things have changed, mostly thanks to European Union process, and also thanks to technology now, if journalists or newspapers hide something, we learn it from tweets or from internet, from some websites or whatever, or Facebook. So it's very difficult to hide the facts now. And also because there's a diversified media, one newspaper doesn't write, another one writes. So we find out things. But again, this doesn't mean that we don't have problems. We have problems which should have been corrected by now. The problem, for instance, we have about more than 4,000 investigations going on against journalists. And most of them are investigated. These are cases, not journalists themselves. I'm not the number of journalists. That's because they report about the ongoing court cases, basically about Ergenekon case. Ergenekon is the case against the plotters of the military coups. So the law says you should not report on that, but journalists do, because they think that we should know what's going on about this. So either the law should change or something has to be done, because 2,500 of them were already a court case, and if when the case finished, the journalists would go to jail. But now the government has made some changes in the law, if it's up to 5 years, then if you don't repeat it, then it's okay. You are not prosecuted. But this is a tentative solution, temporary solution. So we should have a real change in the law that we don't want to be sued, in such cases. But again, also there are some cases against privacy issues. You write about phone tapping, things, and I don't know. There is a thin line whether it's a news or it's just issue of privacy, and then we have a vague line. Another thin line between what is terrorism act and what is freedom of expression. Some journalists, especially the Kurdish ones, report or write about PKK activities or other things about happening in southeastern Turkey, and it is considered as supporting PKK, the terrorist organization. It could easily be considered as freedom of act within the freedom of expression. But again, this is up to prosecutors and judges. When it's up to them, they usually take side with the state rather than individual. And that should be changed first. And then laws should not permit them to take sides with the states, but it should be human rights first, and so on.
Mr. Memecan, how is the situation in Europe, for example? Can a journalist easily support terrorist activity and without any prosecution?
Each country has its own case. Now we are studying that. Not we, but not only journalists, but politicians. I know that they are going to Ireland and study what happened, how did they solve their terrorist problem, and it depends on what country you are. But they have strong precautions against terrorism. But still, I think we should take side towards freedom of expression, because.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I forgot to read Mr. Memecan's bio in the beginning. I just have to fix that problem. Memecan's cartoons are published in various magazines and newspapers abroad, and he has had more than 50 books of cartoons published, right?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this wonderful beginning and introduction. And now
that was a boring subject.
No, it's
if
okay.
you had asked
I
me
will
about
have,
how to draw a cartoon, I would have told
I will have more
fun stuff,
questions later. Now, our second guest was was an editor-in-chief of one of the mainstream newspaper in Turkey. So he has a very huge bio. Let me start to read this bio. Mr. Ergun Babahan received his BA in law from Istanbul University Law Faculty in 1981. After completing his internship in Izmir Bar Association, he worked as a freelance lawyer. In 1984, he joined Yeni Asır newspaper as a political news reporter and became the assistant managing editor until 1987. In 1987, Babahan joined Söz newspaper as a founding staff and started working there as a managing editor. Later on, he worked in Hürriyet newspaper as a news editor for a year. In 1988, he received a scholarship from John Knight's professional journalism program in Stanford University. Upon completing the program, he started working in Sabah newspaper as an assistant managing editor. However, this only lasted a year due to the other scholarship that Babahan received from Ford Foundation at University of Maryland at College Park and attended a seminar on American foreign policy process. Relocating to Turkey in 1991, he continued his work in Sabah newspaper as a managing editor and became the managing editor-in-chief until he joined Yeni Bin Yıl newspaper in 2000 as the founder editor-in-chief. In 2002, he became the Ankara-chief of Akşam newspaper. In August of the same year, he rejoined to Sabah newspaper as editor-in-chief and columnist. Since 2010, he works at Star newspaper and today Zaman as a columnist and also as a political commentator at 24 TV. So because he has worked for a long time in the news business, and I just want to ask, what was your biggest challenge when you were in the office, when you were the editor-in-chief in Sabah newspaper? And please tell us how you were making the news, how you were selecting the news, what were your priorities, and it's really different than the media landscape in United States. Also, what is the reason of the women, representations of the women bodies in the mainstream newspapers such as Milliyet or Vatan newspaper, even Radikal newspaper? Please.
Thank you for having us in here. We can separate our journalism adventure into two. First is our coming from Izmir to Istanbul and starting Sabah newspaper and making it quite successful for a certain period of time, selling more than Hürriyet and making headlines better than Hürriyet, changing the news journalism landscape in Turkey, bringing technology, assisting young journalists going abroad to study and come back, that kind of things. And we were quite successful with it, and Sabah group became one of the biggest group in Turkey and founded it. Also a commercial TV channel, another bunch of newspapers, magazines, very modern printing facilities, etc. But the competition was very tough, and in time, money corrupted people, the owner, the board, etc. So in this competition, everybody was buying a bank to support their businesses, especially for Sabah, starting a new television channel was very costly and spent a lot of money on it. So the company, the owner, bought a bank, and in 2 or 3 years, it bankrupted in 2000. There is a difference between owning this bank and after it. Before we were quite independent, especially we were like outsiders. Nobody knew us much in Istanbul, not the establishment, nor business circles, anybody. We used to hang around together, mostly Salih and a bunch of guys, especially we were nearly all men's society in Sabah. Then we could write about anything. We didn't know any military people in Ankara. We didn't have any contact with the military. We are quite civilian-minded, I guess, Salih.
Yes, we were.
Then after getting the bank, and when they bought the bank, it was already a problematic bank. They bought it from the state, from the government. And then things started getting wrongly. Then we realized that we need politicians' support to be able to survive in the business. So we started determining the headlines according to the politicians' wishes, especially the prime ministers or the minister who is in charge of the treasury, etc. And it got us into trouble, as I mentioned before. In the year of 2000, we bankrupted. The owner went into jail. We all left the paper because of these difficulties. And you stayed. You stayed there. And but we came back in 2002 because the state confiscated everything: newspaper, TV channel, and printing facilities. It was run for a certain period of time by Doğan Group, and other business people came. In 2002 we came back. Our circulation was low, morale was low, and everybody thought it was impossible for Sabah to survive this difficult period, but we somehow managed. It was a strong brand, and after 5 years or 7 years, it was sold again, whole group, for $1.1 billion. So it shows that we managed it quite successfully. During this period, we realized that, especially after buying the bank, the military is very strong organization in Turkey, stronger than the politicians. As I said, our owner was quite different guy. He used to believe military should obey the civilians, and he used to say it openly. Then during a kind of postmodern military coup period, he made mistakes, big mistakes, and tried to please the military people. Then if you ask me what was the most challenging thing, trying to prepare the newspaper for the military, making them happy or pleased as they are. And I don't know if we had any other chances, because there wasn't any opposition movement in Turkey then. And if you try to object them, as Salih said, your life would be in danger. And as we saw in the past, so many important journalists were killed in Turkey, and nowadays we understand that they were killed by a dark organization in the state itself. Otherwise, journalism was fun. We had fun preparing the paper, making the headlines. We introduced so many new technology and developments into Turkey. Salih was one of them with his graphical news. He was creating incredible front pages for Sabah, and it was making a big impact for Turkish society, and he was well ahead, even the American newspapers. He was so good. It was one of our chances at that time. But when I came back, we had quite a lot of women in our editorial board. We had, let's say, my editor, I was editor-in-chief, my deputy was woman, head of supplements, editor-in-chief of supplements was woman, Entertainment news editor was woman. There were news editor who were also women, so it was a quite balanced newspaper, I guess. But we couldn't have any woman with headscarf, I should confess.
But, for example, the editor-in-chief of the New York Times, Mrs. Jill Abramson, what is the reason that Turkish media didn't have a woman editor-in-chief? We know that there were some women in executive levels, but we had a prime minister in 1994, Tansu, but we never had a woman editor-in-chief in the Turkish media. What do you think the reason of this is?
Because it was a man-dominated business.
And it's still, is that still the same? I mean, what is the percentage of the women deployed in the Turkish media?
Let me give you an example. 2 or 3 months ago, the president invited the editor-in-chiefs of television, newspapers,
and there wasn't
others.
any.
There was one single woman, Yasemin Çongar, but she's not the
deputy.
Editor. So, if you see a gathering of editor-in-chiefs still in Turkey, you will see only men society.
You know what? We found this association, and then the board members are all the editor-in-chiefs of the newspapers. So we designed a brochure, a pamphlet, with the pictures of the board members, and they were all men. So now I am ashamed to give it away because it's like a men's club. I mean, it doesn't really represent Turkish media environment, though. We have almost half the people working in the newspapers are women, and half. I would say half, don't you? Yes, right now
50%.
It's half. Yes, but when it comes to top, they are not there yet. But they would be there eventually. I mean, eventually some women, since they have children, they stay away. But when they come back, there's a problem there. But it's all around.
Okay, I understand that. But if in the Turkish media the percentage is 50% of the women are deployed in the media, what is the reason of the bad representation of women in the Turkish media, in the second pages, and and women bodies? Who is doing that?
Because we copied British
tabloid
kind of tabloid and British tradition. Harun Ismail started it, and Niç Bilgin followed up. So they had this page 3 tradition. We copied it, not that much nakedness, but I remember when I started as a reporter in Yenasır, we used to go to the Club Med in around Izmir, or the beaches around Izmir, and we used to take pictures naked tourists. It was a very fashion thing during that time, going to the beach with towels, and we are printing them to our newspapers.
I mean, recently, several years ago, my daughter had told me that I used to read the captions of these pictures, assuming that they were really serious captions. Then she realized that they were just made of stuff.
And would you like to go?
It's not the editors are scary, women editor. Also columnists, there are very few women columnists in Turkish media. Their number is increasing, but not fast enough. But you can't compare it with Western.
But eventually, within several years, there will be 50-50 in every newspaper. And even there may be more. There may be more. There are more women broadcasters daily, daytime broadcasters, not the main news bulletin.
Because they look nicer on the screen.
It's better
than the men's business. They always support like that.
I just would like to remind an interesting thing. In 1860s, there was a newspaper in the Ottoman times which actually was published by just women. All the editors, all the writers were just women, and it was called Sulkü Fezar. You may remember that. So it was. I mean, there is.
You don't remember.
You don't remember that. So I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. There is such a stereotype. There is just a belief that the Turkish modernism started right after 1923, right after the establishment of the new Turkish Republic. But it is not true. Actually, our reorganization process starts in 1839. So we had a great history about this kind of liberation and liberation and modernity issues, actually. But it's a very important note. I mean, Sulkü Fezar was an interesting newspaper.
Before that, within the last 10 years, it was the media was like a men's club.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember we were just going around man to man, having fun. I mean, the best. Sometimes we took our wives along.
Okay.
So decisions were made man to man, and woman was exploited, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But there is one problem. When you are a man's society, you don't need to go home, take care of the kids. If there is a woman editor, she can't hang out with you. She needs to be at home and take care of the kids. In Turkey, you don't do that kind of thing.
This is not the case right now. I mean, a woman could easily be doing my job from home, from any place. You just drop an email.
In your organization, for example, in Media Association, is there a female employee?
Yes, there
Yes.
We have two project directors.
Okay.
Actually, I'm the only
It's not.
He's the only man in the office.
Okay. So I'm just coming to you actually, if you don't mind. Let me read the bio of Mr. Deniz Ergüler, Secretary General of Media Association, blogger, freelance journalist. Deniz Ergüler received his BA in Communication from the Ege University of Turkey in 1999. He worked as an assistant program director at TV8 and as a producer in NTV between 1999 and 2001. In 2001, Ergüler moved to Mexico. It's very interesting. To work for a Turkish company as a sales manager in order to develop his professional work experience and his language skills. Between 2001 and 2008, he lived in Mexico, Brazil, and US. In 2008, Ergüler relocated to Turkey and served as an administrator director at the Turkish renewable energy company focused on solar energy. In 2010, he joined the Media Association as the founding secretary general. His duties include the administration of the association, new project development, and international relations. Mr. Ergüler speaks English, Spanish, and Portuguese fluently. Since 2011, he works as a freelance journalist on new technologies and social media. His personal interests include digital journalism, photography, and new media business models. So, what I want to ask you actually is about the social media after the rise of the digital technologies in all over the world. How is the situation in Turkey? I mean, what is the percentage of the usage of internet in Turkey, and how do you think the social media, the new media, affects the social change in Turkey?
Well, it's quite high actually, and it's quite high, the internet rate in Turkey. We are a very young population actually. Turkey has a population of 74 million, and most of them are like, the average age is 28, and the internet population actually in Turkey is 35 million accesses internet. So it's quite high, and within these numbers, Turkey is the 13th largest country in the world with this online population, and the 5th in Europe after Germany, France, Russia. So I can say that internet plays a very critical role in Turkey's recent development actually. As I have indicated, we are a young population. We like to adapt to the new technologies and new devices. And not only Turkey, but when you look at our recent history, I mean, we can say that internet has been the most important innovation of our generation, I think. You know, when we look at how we communicate with each other, how we shop, how we find our soulmates even, or when we, let's look at the Arab Spring, you know, social media that has played this important role, or the London riots, and maybe on the dark side of the internet. It's just also changing our social life. It's not, the internet is not only within the boundaries of this online space, but it's also affecting our actual life. So it's quite important in terms of the democratization of Turkey, I believe. And also there is this important thing that we in Turkey, the people, the online population, we are quite engaged in the social media. 96% of the whole online population is using social media. We are the first country on friend feed, and 8th on Twitter, and 5th on Facebook. We have 31 million Facebook users, which is quite high in terms of the online users. So these devices, these social internet usage, social media, it all affects, and it affects our style of living, actually. You know, I would like to mention especially Twitter. Twitter has been an important platform for positional ideas, for different ideas. For example, in Turkey, we have this famous saying: when we face a problem on the street, we like to say, you know, where is the state? Where are these officials? Why they don't help us? Now, we had this a few months ago. We had this unfortunate event, this one earthquake in the east part of Turkey. Near to 1,000 people died because of this earthquake. It was a very tragic event. But within the seconds of this earthquake, people, you know, we didn't learn it from TV or radio. We just learned it from Twitter, actually. And people started to exchange ideas on Twitter. Okay. And then, like, I remember one social campaign, for example. I mean, this could be a very good example of how we adapt to the new technology. It's not only for joy, also it's changing our mentality too. You know, there was this famous, one of the senior journalists, actually. He just personally initiated a campaign. It was just Ahmet Tezcan, a senior journalist in Turkey, and he invited people. I mean, he said that my house is it could be. I would like to invite. He said that he would like to invite a family from Van, and that they could stay at his home for a while after they could, you know, recover. And people really loved the idea, and then he started the hashtag in Turkish, Evim Evindir Van, which means my house is your house, one. So within this hashtag, people loved the idea, and they started retweeting. And what I remember on the first day, I think there were almost 1,000 people who were just inviting the families, affected families of one, and then it grew bigger and bigger, and it became like a social campaign. And on the other hand, it also affects the government's policies. So, you know, right now we have many mayors of municipalities using Twitter quite effectively, and the most followed.
The prime minister is not, right? He's not using Twitter.
Not personally, but it's his. I mean, like the people who admires his policies. But the most followed person in Turkey is the president of Turkey, Mr. Abdullah, almost 1.5 million followers. So he's tweeting.
Very active user, right?
He's a very active user. He's just, you know, posting things about his normal life. So when we see, you know, for example, our ex-presidents were like quite untouchable, you know, like I remember those 80s, 90s, even the beginning of 2000s, they were quite untouchable. They were like living on the castles, or like you even couldn't see them. But then again, now we have this president. He's posting his photos from actual life, so it brings people, you know, this clarity and this transparency that is quite important on terms of social understanding and politics. So I believe Twitter has been an important ground, for the democratization of Turkey.
And how do you think that it affects the news business? I mean, the structure of the news.
Well, as it's happening here in the States, as all the world, it's affecting. First of all, negatively, because people right now, with the internet, I think a lot of us have maybe lost the value of paying for news, because it's just free.
Right.
We can access online to any news. We have this Wikipedia, we have these blogs, we have this. Usually, if you want to go and buy a newspaper, you should go to the store and pay money and buy it. But if you want to read it, you just can log on to the internet and you just can see. So this is just game changing. This has become an important obstacle for the major media outlets. So now media outlets are trying to discover ways to monetize, to ask for value actually for their product, which is also because people are producing these news. So it definitely affects. Now we see these mobile apps, for example, the iPhone, the iPads, the tablets. They're all becoming a new business model. And at the same time, we talked about the internet. It's also affecting the way of doing journalism too. It's not only the business side, but it's also the journalism. I remember once that we had invited a very famous journalist, Ayman Mohyadin right now he's working in NBC. He was quite active in the Egypt Arab Spring movements. He told us that all the video footages that came to Al Jazeera, more than 70% of them were these mobile phone recordings. So people, with these mobile devices, they can just shoot things and send and share videos. So it's becoming like we are all journalists, so it's all affecting these media business models.
I mean, when you just mentioned about Al Jazeera, I just want to ask why Turkey couldn't achieve to make something like Al Jazeera?
Well, maybe the media ownership structure, maybe in Turkey could not develop, and maybe Mr. Babahan would be the correct person maybe to talk about.
Would you like to answer this question?
This question.
They have oil money there. Lots of money, and they can afford millions of dollars.
Right.
Getting people from BBC or CNN. It's like not like Qatar news channel, but it's like British or American news channel. So it's not easy for Turkey for the time being to be able to do that. Either maybe if we can find some oil in Turkey, we do it.
Right. But I think that the other important issue here that Turkey didn't have private TV stations until 1994. So I think it's another case. And why do you think? So I just want to ask this, Mr. Memecan. What do you think about that? The TV stations.
We liberal economy came to Turkey quite late.
Late, right?
And that's the only reason. We liberalized our economy with Özal.
Right.
And even then, when we had our private radio station, that was a big thing. I remember one prominent journalist at that time. Yes, one day will come, we will have TRT have many channels. That was the vision he had. I said, now we have all those channels, all these newspapers, all these radio stations. So we are quite well.
It's another case. You just mentioned about TRT. Would you like to answer that? Why do you think that the Turkish government has so many TV stations, a news agency, Anatolian agency? What do you think about that in terms of, media ownership?
The public wanted to control everything, and the news was the most important aspect. And they control the news to Anatolian agency, and they control the broadcasting of it to TRT. And they even tried to shape the culture. You may not remember, but There was a time in Turkey until very recently, a bunch of people used to sit and decided which song can be played on TRT or which cannot. There was only one TV channel, so they were also shaping popular culture in Turkey at that time.
And it was really so easy to make coups at that time because there was only one station to control, right? Yeah.
But TRT also does public service. I mean, that's important. I mean, what private person or private channel would show Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi, five hours a day. So that's why they play classical music. Who would run classical music, or they have a Kurdish
channel.
Yeah, Kurdish channel. Otherwise, it was impossible with private investment to have a Kurdish channel. Or now they have children's channel. They buy, they sponsor animations and so on. So there is a public service there.
Okay.
I would like to add one thing. That Mr. Memecan mentioned that we had this late liberalization in the country, which creates an opportunity also for foreign investments. Because lately Turkey has been a very hot spot actually for the foreign investments, and I know that in technology, especially on the internet business, there are many venture capitalists right now coming to Turkey and trying to invest and find things because now we have this huge economical crisis. So I think this late liberalization also is now creating a very good opportunity.
And with the late liberalization, since we invested recently, we have better technology.
And better infrastructure. Because,
our newspapers has more colors than American ones.
Very colorful. And do you think that the print media in Turkey is going to survive?
Print media in anywhere will
Is
survive, yes.
Is dying.
You have to cut trees and make paper out of it and print. Some other people would go and get the news, you print it on the paper and you distribute to houses, or you just click and you'll see the news. So, but, it takes time. Now, Turkish government is giving away free tablets to students at school. That means that they won't even be reading school books. So they won't be reading books. That doesn't mean that they won't be informed people. They will get their information from tablets, so they will have this habit of reading from, digitally. So paper will go away eventually.
Mr. Baba, where do you think the ads revenues go to? I mean, does it go to online pages or does it go to...
In Turkey now it's going to do television channels.
Television channels, yeah.
Newspapers are losing their advertisement revenue to television channels. Actually, advertisement revenue is increasing in Turkey, but share of newspapers is decreasing.
Okay.
But
And online advertisement is not very high. Google collects all of it, even if Turkey.
But don't see newspaper business as the product only. There are journalists in there, so there is a journalistic production there. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you printed on or how you transfer your information to public. Journalism will live somehow, but paper newspapers will go.
Thank you so much for these wonderful conversations. Right now, I just will offer this program to be a self-moderating program, so we can get some questions from the audience. Yes, please. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Alice Labrie, and I had the honor and privilege to serve in Ankara, Turkey as part of the U.S. Department of State Foreign Service, and I highly, highly honor the Republic of Turkey. My question is, I just read recently that my government is going to start monitoring Twitter and I think Facebook or whatever to be aware of any upcoming social unrest. How does your government view it?
So you answer that.
Yeah, I just didn't understand. If you ask that the Turkish government would be monitoring, or I just didn't get
American government.
American or the Turkish?
The American government is going to begin to monitor.
American, yeah.
I was asking, how is your government doing Twitter and Facebook and so forth?
I see. Well, as far as I know, there is no legal intention for like monitoring this regular social, tools. I know that, but in specific occasions, I know that. I mean, if there is someone related to some criminal activities, the courts can decide to follow that person, but that person specifically, not like all the public, because it's just impossible, to follow 35 million internet users. It would be just unimaginable to go through all these messages and check everything that people are talking about.
It's very difficult to control internet. I mean, Deniz was telling us several years YouTube was banned in Turkey because of some Atatürk content in it. And during that time, YouTube was one of the 10 most visited websites in Turkey, although it was banned. So
I will disagree with them. We have this violence issue. I'm sure it's being monitored even now. Otherwise, it will be the most convenient communication tool for those militants who wants to organize a crime or attack something like that. If they don't, they are making a big mistake, in my opinion.
And there is also this privacy issue that I think on the internet that it shouldn't be only directed to the government, but the corporations itself too. Maybe you have heard last week there was this app called Path on the iPhone that it appears to be that app was sending all the address book and the contacts and the messages to the servers of the company that owned that app, which was illegal actually. And then it came out that several other apps were using the same technique to obtain the personal data that we had on our iPhone. So I think this privacy issue is not only dedicated to the governments or the laws, but it has become a general issue.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's sort of tied to what you just said. My name is Klaus Müller. I misunderstood you earlier, Mr. Memecan. You said that 4,000 investigations of journalists taking place. Number one.
more 4,000 cases.
Cases of investigation, yeah. And then you refer to the fact that there's certain issues that cannot be investigated by journalists against the law. Is that correct? The laws against investigation of certain issues.
No.
No. So what should I do?
I mean, I think those cases are for the Ergenekon cases. The news reports about the Ergenekon case, they are actually indicted.
Okay, I mean, you cannot report on ongoing court cases. It's illegal until it's been made public in the court. That's what I mean. So that's why those journalists are being investigated.
When the state prosecutor starts an investigation and, let's say, get people arrested by court, until he prepares his indictment and the court accepts it, you can't report about the investigation.
As a journalist, I was prosecuted in 1997 just because the book that I wrote and just because the documents that I used in my book, they were classified books, and it was in the military court. I mean, till the midst of the 2000s, actually, we were facing that problem. The civilians, the journalists were also prosecuted or indicted by the military courts as well. So we had really troubles on these issues in the past.
Hello, my question is it on? All right. My question is from Mr. Hi.
Yeah, okay, we can hear you.
All right. My question is from Mr. Mr. Babahan, you mentioned that even though there are 50% of female journalists in Turkey, but none of them, almost none of them have been on the position.
Executive level. Oh, yeah.
Right. So none of them being in editor-in-chief. And you mentioned because they have to go back to home to their family every time. My question is, what I understood from what you said, women in Turkey are being expected to take care of family. Also, journalists are being expected to be a force for a better society. What you as an editor-in-chief have done to change that view of women in Turkey?
I work with female journalists, with lots of them, because they are meticulous. They care a lot about the details. They prepare, in my opinion, they the better news, in my opinion. So I prefer working with them. I didn't mean that they couldn't become an editor-in-chief because they had to go on. They couldn't join our gatherings as the business was finished, and when we finished our newspaper, it was usually 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening. Then you go out restaurant or bar, something like that, and it lasts about 1 o'clock in the morning. So it was mandating, not.
But it was then. It was then. It was then, not now. When you don't go home by 8 o'clock, your wife says, "Where were you?" Now you have to be at home.
Back to the question. Sorry, I don't want to take that. What would happen if a woman goes home at 1 a.m.? What's wrong with that?
But they, as I told you, we were all men, and they didn't. One woman didn't want to join us usually. There were a few women in the board, but they didn't like the idea. Mostly they had kids, and they wanted to spend their time with their families in the bar. That was their choice.
So they chose. They choose.
Yeah.
All right.
We didn't push them out.
No, but believe me, the woman will prevail in newspaper business in coming
He
years.
says newspapers will be that, and she.
No, I mean, journalism, let's say journalism. They work harder, they are, as he said, more meticulous, more responsible, and, there will be more executives in journalism.
Actually,
very near
in
future.
2005, the percentage was 27. Only 27% of the deployment in Turkish media were women. So it changed. There is an increase.
Let me give you an example. Several years ago, Zaman newspaper, the newspaper that
my newspaper,
had a seminar on page design, newspaper design. And I was a jury member. So what they did is they gave an assignment to design a page, and they collected the work with the names covered, and they evaluated. And there were about 50 women, 50 men. So the names are open, the 10 best was chosen, and the awards were given, and 10 of them were by women. It was so embarrassing for men. They read the names, and women one by one came up and got their awards. And the 11th one was a man, obviously, and he fell down as he was coming to. That was so embarrassing.
So you don't find it a little unexpected that these women who are very good journalists, none of them have any anxious to be editor-in-chief, or?
No, they will be very soon. You see,
we
not
were in my newspaper, but in some other papers there have been 1 or 2 women editors.
No. You see, in the front row of that ceremony, we were all men. The editor-in-chief, design chief, the board members, we were all men. But that means in a couple of years, most probably there will be 60%, 70% women.
Can I just? I just want to contribute on that woman lady issue. Last year, I guess, I was reading a poll it said the only 10% of the ladies in Turkey actually reading newspaper. I think the answer lies over there. When the social phenomena or the Turkish woman change, when they start to read actually the newspaper, I think the woman will eventually automatically. I think that the problem lies over there. That's most of the women.
I think women read as much news as men. You know, there are more workers, employees in banks, more in schools, in academia, more in everywhere. So I'm sure they read more.
It's coming up. That it's when the percentage goes up, hopefully everything will change. Actually.
But imagine there is a restriction on women in headscarf. In spite of that, Turkey has one of the highest women population in courts or academia, etc., even in the news business.
And that's only among, let's say, 35% of women, because 65% of women is covered, according to statistics.
Yes, please.
My name is Jim Romaine, and in the last big election, last summer, one of the big issues was the idea of a new constitution for Turkey. And I was wondering, what do you see as the place of journalism and media in Turkey in the formation of this new constitution? And what role can you play and what influence do you have as a journalist?
Okay, as the president. Okay, first of all, as an NGO, we go and give our point of views, what should be done about journalism. I mean, we should have a freedom of expression, untouchable thing in the Constitution. And also, we report and we hope that it will happen, but they decided that it will be, every party would accept, would agree upon, which to my opinion, it's impossible. So I don't know how this would come out, because now there are 4 parties, one of them got 55%, one of them got 10% or 12% of the votes, but every party had 3 representatives in the committee. So they all have to agree on the articles. That's impossible.
But the question was how we can contribute. Some papers make surveys or ask their readers what kind of constitution they want for. So they collect their readers' responses in a file and give it to the commission. Or we are discussing in our columns or news parts, what about the definition of citizenship? What about the role of secularism in the Constitution? We should emphasize or not the secularism? Or there are 3 first articles of the Constitution. We cannot even offer to change them, unamendable. So most people are against that kind of rules. So newspapers are playing a role to make people think about that kind of issue, preparing them for a more open democratic constitution.
But already,
it will be our first civilian constitution.
Already Turkish people have become, Turkish society have become more transparent. So now we are discussing issues that we have never discussed before. We talk about Armenian genocide. We write about Armenian genocide in our newspapers. We talk about Kurdish issues. Some journalists ask how come they don't teach their children in their mother's tongue. We also talk about how come there are no minorities, religious minorities in government offices. Those kind of things are being discussed and written. That's quite an open society. That's good. I'm sure that would reflect itself on the new constitution.
And only 5 years ago, Brandt's was murdered because he openly defended that 1915 was a genocide. So things changed quite rapidly.
Is that why he was worried?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, please.
My name is Memecan. Here we read a lot of op-ed pieces and other comments that the press freedom is going backwards in Turkey and that journalists are being prosecuted, put in jail. Recently on Fox TV, there was a loaded question to the Republican candidate, Rick Perry. And in that question, one of the things that was said was that Turkey is looking like Russia in terms of press freedom. Now, Fox TV is owned by Rupert Murdoch, who is now trying to buy Sabah TV. So I have two questions. One, what's your opinion on the press freedom in Turkey? And two, why does Rupert Murdoch want to buy Sabah TV if the press freedom is regressing in Turkey?
There are two aspects of press freedom in Turkey. In the past, there were certain taboos determined by the state of the military, you name it. You can't touch, you can't write Kurdish, Armenian issue, Cyprus, the role of military in Turkey, or some state-sponsored murders. You couldn't go after those murders either. So in that part, we are really free. Nowadays, we can question anything, we can write anything. But we have a problem with newly independent judiciary. They get more power, but mostly free of the political arm of the Turkey. But they are interpreting to existing laws for restricting the freedom of journalists or academician or whoever else. And the violence of Kurdish women in Turkey makes them threatened. They see it as a real threat to existence of Turkey. So they arrested people like Büşra Ersan or Ragıp Zarakol, publishers or academicians. Or sometimes they get angry, they arrest people for writing books, like Ahmet Çelik Şener. Or they might try to arrest chief of intelligence organization in Turkey. These are the problems of Turkey. Actually, on paper, the decisions of European Human Rights Court is superior to Turkish constitutions and laws, but no judge obeys this rule. It's written in our constitution, and when you interpret the laws, you should look up the decisions of European Court, but nobody does, because none of them can read or speak a foreign language. That's the problem. And for Murdoch, he goes to China also. He doesn't care about the freedom of press or any other things. When he goes to China, he works with the Chinese government. Even if it's restricted in Turkey, they will find a way to work with the Turkish government also.
And I would like to add something about these statistics also. There is this thing that we should also consider. Different organizations have different criteria when defining the arrested journalists. Like, for example, there are some organizations in Turkey that says that there are more than 100 journalists arrested. And there is this CPJ, Committee to Protect Journalists, which is an international organization. It says that there are only 8 journalists in Turkey. And on the meantime, Ministry of Justice says that there are 64. So there are these numbers. Maybe we would ask why they are different, because of the criteria when defining who is a journalist and who is not. or who is being accused of a crime, if he's doing a journalistic activity or not. For example, the same international organizations don't accuse England for violating the press freedom when they have arrested more than 20 journalists. Those journalists were working on the media channels of the Murdoch, News of the World magazine, and now I think there are more than 20 journalists arrested in England. So it depends on how you are looking at the situation and what criteria do you have. And in Turkey, I mean, like, it's not like being a journalist is not like being a doctor or like being a lawyer. You don't need a, I mean, everyone can be a journalist if you are working. I think the thing here is that who is a journalist and who is a media worker. I mean, you can be working in a media company, but at the same time, you could be, doing a terrorist activity or criminal. So it depends on what criteria you have.
In 2005, in the United States as well, Judith Miller from the New York Times was arrested, as you remember. So, yeah, when it comes to the national interest, national security issues, United States counterterrorism laws are very strict as well. In the beginning of this month, actually, United States government just allowed the American army to arrest any American citizens abroad and at home as well. So it just happened. And the counterterrorism laws in Turkey are not that strict either. And those journalists who were just mentioned actually were not prosecuted because of their journalistic works. Actually, they were arrested because of the allegations that they were linked to a terrorist organization, which is actually ERGUN, and some other journalists are considered to have connections with another terrorist organization, PKK. So I just wanted to add.
But still, the number is unacceptable.
Yes.
It's too high. Even we are mentioning one or two examples in the US. It's unfortunate that most people that increase the number of journalists are Kurds. That's quite a problem.
Yes, you're right. Yes, please.
I think in Turkey, the journalists and writers, they're getting together to form the common mind about platforms. And it seems that, the thinkers, they agree, not agree on things, but they're working together on social issues that they're facing and trying to come up with solutions. What is the reason you think, what was it that triggered the thinkers of Turkey to form a common mind? What was the reason?
We were very polarized society. We are still actually in certain terms, but before this about platform thing, we didn't like come together with people presenting different political views. We are, let's say, if I were a social democrat, I wouldn't like to come with a conservative guy or totally agree upon anything. But Avant was started and run by conservative and some Marxist thinkers, leaders of civil society, like Commentator, etc. So it created an atmosphere where different colors of Turkish political spectrum can come together on different issues. Kurdish issue to place of women in society or education, and share their views and know each other better. So it creates an harmony. When you create harmony at the upper level, it goes to the down of the society. So it sets a good sample, I guess.
Another question? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Mia Okamia. I spent last summer, I spent a month in Istanbul and I just went back. Kind of sad to be back in New York again. I was wondering, we were just talking about the monitoring of internet use, and when I was there, I actually encountered the internet filters that have been instituted. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that, what it exactly means, because I've been hearing contradictory reports that it's actually for everyone or that you can pick. I'm not sure anymore, especially since I encountered it myself. It was very strange. And after that, if you could maybe talk a little more about that on the case. Yeah.
Okay, why don't you tell about
Okay, about the internet filtering system. You know, Turkey is generally, I mean, as the moral values might be considered as a conservative country about the moral values. So there are people who demanded that, you know, in order to protect their children from the harmful content, you know, pornography or violent things, they demanded things from the company and even from the government, so that they could, you know, some filter content, and they could at least, you know, leave their children with their computer with the trust. So I think with that intention, a governmental organization initiated a program, Internet Safety Filtering Program. They were supposed to introduce it on the 22nd of August, and they, you know, offered some ways to filter the content. But this filtering system raised many concerns. So people in Taksim, thousands of people voted against it to protest the decision, because they were afraid, I mean, we were afraid that the government would filter every content and that it would make a censorship, a kind of censorship. So and I think that the project was not well defined and it was not discussed openly, in my opinion, which was a big error actually, because when you do a filtering system, which is like, it's quite difficult to filter the internet at the first time, and second, if you try to do it without discussing with the people, you can make errors. So because of these protests, this organization decided to postpone the project to 22nd of November, and then they decided to not to make it mandatory, but as an optional. So now we have the filtering system in Turkey, but it's not mandatory. We still keep on using the same internet that we used to have before 22nd of November. But then again, families now have two different options. One, I mean, not two, it's two. The first one is a standard one, and the second one, they have these two different levels, which one is like different levels of safety. So now the good thing is that people can choose at least. So it's not like, I'd say, like China's great firewall of China, that everything is controlled, like, you know. So it's an optional system.
And that's what I was going to say. It's an optional package. If you don't want your child to get into, you know, undesirable, undesired sites, then you have option of clicking that, applying for it. I mean, it's not default choice. Default is quite free. And
but
I think
it
was
also
intended
protect
that
adults in Turkey. You can't get into pornographic portals. It's forbidden in Turkey.
For everyone.
For everyone. So there is a general filter about it.
Yes, Hrant Dink case. You were going to answer that.
Hrant Dink case is very complicated. We saw the courts and prosecutors can be quite assertive in terms of, let's say, against generals or even the chief intelligence officer of MIT. But when it came to the Hrant Dink case, they tried to cover up certain things, in my opinion, because they didn't go after the evidence. They had the power, but they didn't brought some certain police chiefs or military officers to the court and question them. So it was for Turkey, it's a shameful verdict. But there was a big reaction, and it came to the same time with this killing anniversary. So we believe highly cordial turn it down, and probably we will find the real responsible people for the murder.
If you don't mind, sir, I can share my opinion about the Grant case because I was one of the last journalists who interviewed him, and I can say that actually Grant assassination was part of psychological warfare which was actually conducted by Ergenekon, because there are some other assassinations which were actually conducted to non-Muslims. One in Malatya, they tortured and killed some priests in Malatya, and also in Trabzon, another priest was murdered, and also in 2003 we had some explosions. One was in HSBC Bank, and the other one was in a synagogue and British consulate. So when you look at the sledgehammer indictment, you can easily see the connections between Al-Qaeda and the Ergenekon, because I mean the enemy of my enemy is my friend was their actually mindset at the time. So they cooperated together, and I can analyze that. AK Party government actually they were thinking that AK Party government was the extension of United States policy in the Middle East. So AK Party represents actually a moderate Islam, a model which can bring democracy and Islam together. It was what was actually tried in Turkey after 2001, right after the September 11 in 2002, they just came to power. So Al-Qaeda and Ergenekon sometimes they cooperated. So Ergenekon just tried to create an atmosphere in Turkey to show United States, to show the Western countries, look at this AK Party, how they are supporting the Islamic organizations in Turkey. So they are just going to bring Turkey past. We call it reactionism, irtija. So that was their psychological warfare. So when you look at the Malatya case, for example, you can see that there was a link between some of the generals and some of these assassinations. So it was actually part of Ergenekon case, I guess.
But still, there is a question to be answered. The prosecutors went after even the military chief of staff. They stormed the most sensitive rooms, etc. They arrested all chief of staff. So why didn't go after Grantlink's murderers? That's the question to answer.
I guess, if you don't mind, there was a competition between military and police department at that time. So Ergenekon just wanted to show that this assassination was linked to police department, because at that time, the person who was in charge of intelligence department of the police, Ramazan Akgülek, they just wanted to link it to him, but it didn't work, so they failed. So there was just a power struggle between these two forces.
But still, it's not about court. You should go after the lawyer or it doesn't their job to differentiate people from chiefs or military people.
And in my interview with Mr. Trumping, he undergraded the Ergenekon's responsibility in Asala. Asala was an Armenian terrorist organization which actually killed more than 30 Turkish diplomats. So it was believed that Ergenekon also fought against Armenian Asala organization in 1970s. In my interview, he just underestimated the power of this organization. It was another issue. And the second one is maybe considered that he also criticized the notion of Turkishness. In Turkey, there is that statement remark that Atatürk, damarlarınızdaki basın, what was that expression? the power that you need lies in your blood, actually. Noble blood. So he just criticized that nobleness, you see. So it was another issue. But the third, he just told me that in my interview. So he was not thinking that the Turks or the Union and Progress Party, Party, was only the responsible group in these Armenian massacres and deportation issues, because he also claimed that there are some powers again around the Ottoman palace, and he was also counting the Jews and some other religious groups, because they were very powerful in the İttihat Party, Union and Progress Party. And Union and Progress Party was also supported by German military at that time, and he was believing that German military was also supported by Jewish money at that time, Jewish capital. So it is really complicated.
Yes.
So they killed
Okay, so we have only 5 minutes, so we can get only 2 questions, please.
My name is Artis Clavins. As a school child in America, I was always taught that one of the main functions of journalism and the press is to be a safeguard against tyrannical government and to be a watchdog against abusive government practices. Is that a view that's shared by a lot of journalists in Turkey? Is it? Do you feel it's a view that can grow in Turkey now? That there's more freedom?
Yeah, some of us have been doing this for some years. That's why we are against the military coups, these dictators, because we know that when they come, they hurt, and before they come, they even hurt more, because they have to pave the way for coming. They have to create a chaotic environment, political environment, kill people, you know, and after they come, they torture, they do so many other stuff. So yes, we journalists should watch those guys and prepare against them and do reporting against them, and that's what we have been doing.
I want to remind you, when Akbar came to power in 2002, torture was a very widespread thing in Turkey. Parliamentarians or the judges were coming to Turkey, checking police station, and they were finding so many tools for torture. Now there are still mistreatment of suspects in some part of Turkey, but nobody is claiming they were tortured at police stations or some other places. That's one of the best development in terms of human rights. In the past, always in the human rights report, Turkey was in a very bad place. And we also keep in mind, we have a class, we had a lesson in our schools, in high schools, national security class, given by a military officer. AK Party could only manage to suspend it this year because they felt only strong enough to be able to do that. But we still clear the path for many other things. We can't know what they teach kids they take to military school. They still teach them it's their duty to protect the country. They are the guardian of the country. And we have still very absurd stuff in our school books, and they can't still decide to change that. We are in the process of changing our country. Sometimes we know for sure no government is perfect. They are making mistakes. This is their third time they are tired, maybe a little bit too much self-confident, drunk with their victories. We know all that. But if we look at the alternative, if we go back again, it makes the country unlivable for us. So we are cooperating with everyone for a better democracy and rule of law.
Actually, unfortunately, I have to say that I can only get only one question because
who's the lucky one?
Who's the lucky one? Let's. Yes, please. Yes. Yes.
Hi. My name is Laura. I'm a college student in New York, but I actually spent a semester studying in Istanbul. And while I was there, I actually had an internship with today's Zaman. So my question is, you touched upon the idea of media conglomerations in Turkey and big business, and I was just wondering if you could speak to the state of big media companies in Turkey and how that affects censorship.
This is my question. I write about it very often. This is the pettiest thing in Turkey. If you put aside Zaman Group, all media companies are owned by big business, and they have contracts with the government or the state. So they care less about the freedom of press, but they care more making money. And unfortunately, if you don't own one of the biggest TV channels in Turkey, you are losing money on media. They are losing money to make more money with other businesses. This is the most darkest side of Turkish media. We have the same problem with judiciary. We are the most in the backward part of the society. We couldn't change the structure of the media, but we hope not Murdoch, but maybe Time Warner will come to Turkey and bring some different rule of competition again to Turkish media, and this will be on the competition of news, ambience, comments, etc. But we are worse than any other country in the region, I guess, in this term. European countries.
Okay.
I mean, that's too much of a generalization. You know, I mean, we should have our principles and shouldn't care too much about who the boss is, as long as boss, the owner, acts within these principles, and some of whom can do or would do.
Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, to finalize, I think also related to Mr. Artis' question about, I think the most important thing, you know, apart from all these legislations, law, government, I think the most important thing is the mentality. And the mentality of the whole world is changing. It's drastically changing. I mean, think about, like, you know, how many telephone numbers do you have in your memory? Every one of us, I mean, like, maybe 1, 2, 3. But I don't think that it will be more than 5 or 10 even. You know, we stopped memorizing things because of these technological advancements. It's that we are changing how we are thinking. Now the question is not having the information loaded, but it's the most important thing is how to access the information. So all these advancements will affect how we are thinking, how we are seeing the things, and it clearly affects Turkey too. And so I think all these advancements will create a more open and a more diverse society.
I like the last say. Information is important, but who controls it is more important than information itself. You can shape the information in any way. So the media ownership is very problematic.
And again, in the age of internet, nobody controls the information. Yes. So
Just the old school.
They filter them.
He's the old school.
We find ways to reach it.
I just want to thank you all who participated in this program tonight. We will have some refreshments so we can enjoy refreshments. And Mehmet is just going to announce something about the upcoming events.
Okay, I want to thank every one of you in the audience for being with us, and also esteemed journalists and writers sharing all these ideas with us. We have so many programs coming up. I just like to update you on those. On February 23rd, next Thursday, we have BABAHAN table with a wonderful topic, racism and anti-Semitism. On February 25th and 26th, which is Saturday, Sunday, we are celebrating the Coffee and Tea Festival. just of course a few blocks away from here. On Monday, February 27th, we will have a book signing and a lecture, Turkey Unveiled, a history of modern Turkey, written by Nicole Pope. That's another event. And on February 28th, we will start our business English classes, and Dr. Jim Romain, he's leading that. And on March 1st, we have another interesting book signing.
Very exclusive. I will interview an investigative journalist from Business Week about his most recent book, which is titled Clock. So he just wrote a book about the gun industry. There are several very
Paul Barrett.
Paul Barrett. So he's going to be my guest here. So we will discuss the gun industry and very controversial issues. So please come.
Okay, stay tuned with us. Thank you so much. Please enjoy Turkish cooking day.
Sabah